I'm so happy to be here. Happy to be back virtually in New York City. I think it was close to 4 or 5 years ago that I think I last presented at your meetup, and I was at InMotion Hosting, which is the company I just left after 5 years. So excited to be back. It's kind of ironic listening to the first presentation because at the end of InMotion, I was at Web Ventures, which is the mergers and acquisition side of InMotion Hosting, and I helped them acquire about 5 or 6 WordPress companies and plugins and hosting companies. So I was kind of in that world for the last couple of years, in addition to the product side on our plugins. But that's not what I'm here to talk about today. Today I'm going to talk about invoicing, try to get this done by the top of the hour, so you make sure that you can go have dinner or whatever you want to do, because I know it's getting close to 9 o'clock your time when this is ending. So this is invoicing you, getting paid, WordPress tools, and making happy clients. My name is Mike Demo. I am the expert community development lead at Codeable. Codeable is the world's largest WordPress freelance marketplace. We have over 600 developers that get paid an average of $100 an hour, servicing our over 25,000 clients, and we've completed over 155,000 separate tasks over the last 9 years. So that's kind of, I make sure our developer community gets the support they need, and also find new developers who are looking to make either main income or supplemental income. But my job is basically community. I've done agency stuff in the past, and I've also freelanced myself as well. You can reach me at mikedemo@codeable.io. My Twitter is @mpmike. Twitter is honestly probably the best way to reach me. My DMs are always open. You can hang out, check out with me there. And then my Facebook, LinkedIn, and website is on there as well. And yes, my avatar is holding cards. I used to be a semi-professional magician. I still do it for fun sometimes. So never got into DJing, but I do some magic. So there we go. The agenda today is going to talk about invoicing basics, how to get paid and payment methods, some stuff about contracts, talk about some WordPress invoicing plugins that exist, and some SaaS opportunities as well if you don't want to use a WordPress, reoccurring revenue, some cautions, and then open it up to some Q&A, and then I'll close it out with a 30-second plug on Codeable. So when you want to talk about invoicing, a lot of people, don't really know what invoicing is. They know how to, generate a contract and send an invoice, but there's some basic things that I want to make sure we're on the same page that maybe you haven't thought about. Because I talk to agencies and freelancers all the time that are just so happy to get a client willing to give them any money. Then they'll send off an invoice, and then that will kind of be that, and then they'll get paid. And then maybe it wasn't scoped out properly, or it wasn't based on the hours, or whatever it is, and then they're working for like $5 an hour because it wasn't scoped out properly. So the first thing I would like to talk about is the difference between estimates and quotes. So this isn't directly related to invoicing per se, but whenever you give a quote, when I was doing agency work at all of our agencies, we would charge for discovery. To give a quote. We would give a rough estimate before formulating something formal, but we'd have a $1,500 discovery fee, and that would give them a written scope of work as well as a formal quote for the project. Because let's be honest, it takes time to figure out what the client wants. At Codeable, we call it building rapport. We never estimate on the first communication with a client, and we don't allow our expert developers to do so either. And the reason for that is you want to get the full scope of what the client wants and needs and what the goals of the site. I can't tell you how many times I've talked to freelancers, and they're like, oh, the client loved the site when it launched, but then I asked them to update it for a WordPress update or whatever it is, and then they're not happy anymore. Well, how many times do we not ask the client why the site exists? We assume why the site exists. And even if we ask them what the site's for, they might be like, oh, to sell more. Well, what's more? So I highly, highly recommend that before you even get to the estimate or quote stage, when you into that discovery, and it should be a paid discovery, I firmly believe that, and even if they don't get to work with you, they'll have a deliverable document for a scope of work that they can shop around to other web developers. But it's going to prove to the client that you know what you're doing. But in that scope of work should be goals, specific goals, uh, SMART goals, specific, measurable, attainable, and time constraints on it. So that after 6 months after launch, it's a binary, yes or no, this site was successful. And once you know what those goals are, then you can help the client make decisions on what's important and what's not. Most clients at the end of the day don't care about how a site looks. Yes, they want a site to be aesthetically pleasing, but that's not what they're answering to their manager, or that's not what they're answering to their spouse if it's a small business. At the end of the day, there's a specific thing that site is created for and servicing, and you need to figure that out. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is to get paid to write your scope of work and then formulate a quote off of that. So I strongly recommend start with estimates. Estimates can be quick discovery calls, rough ballparks, but then say, hey, for me to be able to give you a formal scope of work and quote, it's going to take this many hours, and here's my hourly rate. Would you like to do that? This is how we work. And if they answer no, it's probably for the best. You probably don't want them as a client anyway. There are 3 different ways that you can price your services. So number 1 is cost plus pricing. You take your expenses and you add a set margin, such as 60%. So if your cost of services, your cost of your offices and your advertising and your host and your tools that you use and your computer and you take all those costs for that project, and then you just add the margin. So that's one way you can do it. Another way is market rate pricing. You compare rates with similar competitors in your area, offering similar level work. It's kind of hard to do that because you have to be, especially if you're a freelancer, because freelancers are such a wide berth. You got the kid in college or high school building sites on Shopify or Wix or Weebly to really established professionals. So you got to make sure you're comparing apples to apples there. But you can look at market rate pricing. And then my preferred one is value-driven pricing, where the client pays what they get out of it. Now, this isn't the old, I'll pay you money once my site's successful, thing that we've all heard from way too many clients. It's you scale the pricing based on the value to the client that you're talking to, because cost is subjective and value and price are 2 different things. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is if you have a nice discovery, and that discovery will tell you what this site's going to mean to their bottom line. This site, they're going to tell you what this project's going to mean for their business. And if it's their business, it's even more personal. And that's where it'll help you figure out the pricing from there. In those different types of models, you can also have different types of things. So you can charge an hourly rate, like I charge $100 an hour as an example. Or daily or weekly rates. My daily rate is $500, whichever the case may be, or fixed project cost. This project is going to cost X. So some of these work better with some of those other models. For example, you can use hourly rates with market rate pricing, but hourly rates with value-driven pricing, it's a little harder. You can change your hourly rate a little bit. At Codable, we recommend for our experts to anchor themselves at a set price. We say it has to be a minimum of $70 and no more than $120 an hour as your anchor price. And then if it's something a more junior developer can do, maybe scale down $10, maybe $15 an hour. If it's something more senior, maybe scale up $15, $20 an hour, and then the base work, 80% of the work will kind of be in that anchor spot if you're doing hourly pricing. If you're doing any sort of on-site training or traveling, specifically if you're traveling, I recommend, you charge for full days. You charge for the travel expenses. Make sure that you're getting paid for that. If your daily rate is $500, for example, I would recommend your travel days. You get paid at half of that, so you get paid $250 plus any hard expenses that you incur. You'll be surprised how many times you don't get pushback on a lot of this stuff. Get a deposit. It's so simple. Use an escrow service if the client's really sketchy with just getting a deposit. But get a deposit. Don't do any work without a deposit. Don't log into their WordPress. Just don't do it. I can't tell you how many times I've talked to people that I fixed something for somebody really quick and they never got paid. The minute it's on their server, it's theirs. And so get a deposit on any work that you do. Make sure your contract, and we'll talk about contracts in a little bit, is really set and clear and there's no ambiguities. But at the end of the day, if a client doesn't want to give you a deposit, you probably don't want to work with that client. I was talking to a freelancer and they had an issue with a client. That the client filed a chargeback from the credit card company. And after talking and talking to the expert and looking at it, the client had tons of red flags. And we just need to listen to our gut. I know it's tempting when you have rent to pay to just accept something, but I'll tell you a story. So I got a call from somebody who said, "Hey, I heard you're really good, and I need some do you freelance?" I'm like, "I freelance with a couple of people once in a while, but it's not my thing I do anymore full time." And he's like, "I could just tell on the phone this guy was not going to be a good client to work with." So I tripled my hourly rate when I talked to him on the phone, just to have him say no. And I was right. If I would have taken that, I guarantee you I would have been miserable. And we all can probably find situations like that. And a good way to suss out if a client's going to be a good client or not is if they're willing to pay a deposit. If it's a larger project, make sure your scope of work has a payment schedule, and then if they don't pay on that payment schedule, stop working. When I personally freelance, I make all my clients pre-buy 20 hours at a time. I don't post bill. I pre-bill they pre-buy my hours. And then they have a time track sheet and it eats against that. The hours don't expire. They round up to the nearest 15-minute. And every call I do, every email I do, it gets logged in there. Now, if it's a quick email, I loop emails together. So it's not like every email's 15 minutes. But that's how I work. And you know how many times I've lost a client because they say, "Hey, to work with me, here's my hourly rate. And you have to buy a minimum 20-hour block to work with me." That answer is never. I've never had an issue. The flip side, how many times I had to beg people to pay for bills after I already did the work when I was trying to do this full time? That answer is a lot. Don't work until you're paid, period. At Codable, we do sell consultations that clients can buy for like $69 or around that. We don't allow our experts to do any work on those hour consultations. Our experts get paid for the time, of course, but they're not allowed to do any work because it's a consultation. So just don't do any work until you're paid. It's very simple. Set your payment terms. How do you want to get paid? Do you want to get paid net 10, net 30, net 60? The larger the client, the more flexible you have to be on this. Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies, they have procurement departments that, you have to deal with that. But even when we had clients, with Fortune 500 clients, and we had to deal with procurement departments, if we said, "Hey, we won't be able to start the work until the deposit's paid," they somehow figured out a way to make the procurement go a little bit quicker. So figure out what terms you're comfortable with. Be that, if you send it invoiced, do you want those terms to be net 10, net 30, whatever the case is? And are there late fees if they don't pay that? And again, lay all this out in the scope of work. Even if you have payment terms of net 30, if you say in your contract, in your scope of work, that we won't go on to phase 2 until phase 1's paid, as an example, the terms are just there, but the project's paused at that point. You got to think about different ways that you can accept payment. There's a lot of different ways that you can accept payment and the pros and cons of each. You can select electronic payments such as PayPal, Stripe, Venmo, Square, or cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. They all have pros and minuses. I also hear a lot of people that are like, "Oh, but I don't want to take the 2.9% fee or the PayPal now 5% fee if it's international." I get it. It sucks. but it's also a cost of doing business. When I am buying something at Best Buy, they don't pass on their credit card fee to me. And if your rates are so fragile that you can't absorb that credit card fee, raise your rates. At the end of the day, it's an option. Now, if you want to give a cash discount, if people pay with like via a check or a bank wire or something, that's a good way to get around it. But you know, don't pass don't pass on the credit card fees. Now, there is a service out there called Wingspan that I use for my personal freelance business, wingspan.app, where you pay a flat fee. I think I pay $29 a month, and all money that I run through Wingspan costs me zero. There's no transaction fees. And no matter if I run $5,000 or $100,000, and I've run quite a bit through that account, and I just pay my monthly fee and I don't get any transaction fees on that. So there's options like that that are starting to pop up as well. Bank transfer is another good option. The thing about bank transfers, specifically if it's an international company, I highly, highly, highly recommend to use a service called Veeam for international bank wires, because it's based on the blockchain. It's not crypto, but then you can track the wire, because if it's just a standard SWIFT transfer overseas, there's really no way to track it. It's, the client can say they sent it, but it can take up to 2 weeks for that to show up. So Veeam shows the full process of where that money is. I used to be the treasurer of Joomla. We use this to pay our volunteers and vendors around the world. So Veeam is a really good service, and their fees are pretty low. If that's US based, you can just do a standard ACH, and you'll usually get that within 2 to 3 business days. Again, Wingspan makes it easy, and the companies like Stripe make it easy as well, where clients can just one-click log into their online banking and do a bank wire without having to know the numbers or anything like that, or actually do a manual wire on that side. So that's something to consider. A money order is also an option, but unless you're doing a super large project that you need that security, like 6 figures, it's probably not worth it. A standard check would be fine. Like we talked about, paper money order, cash or check. Some people like to pay in cash. Some people like to pay in check. That's perfectly okay. If clients want to pay me in check, that's fine. They just know that work won't happen until the check gets deposited. Something you can actually recommend if clients do really want to pay in check is Deluxe. The check printing company has Deluxe e-checks, where a client can buy a book of Deluxe e-checks for $5 and get 50 checks, and then send you an e-check, and then you just print it out and deposit it at your local bank. They order them just like any checks that they would order from Deluxe Check Printing, and except it comes into in a PDF. You print it out, and then you can deposit it in your local bank. So that's a way to do for clients to pay via check if they don't want to do bank wire without having to physically, mail something in the mail. One thing about physical, there are companies out there where you can have a like UPS store and things where you can have a PO box, and all checks that come to that PO box will auto be deposited to your account. So that's something you can consider as well, so you don't have to deal with it yourself. Contracts are extremely important. If it's not in your contract, it really didn't happen. This is what's going to protect you. Make sure the transfer of ownership of the work you do gets protected. You want to, contracts, just make sure everything that you talked about is what happens, because sometimes stuff goes sideways. And when I talk to developers or clients or, people that have issues with past developers, at the end of the day, it's 99% of the time it's due to miscommunication. It's not because somebody wanted to screw over and steal from someone, or it's not because the client didn't know what they were doing, or the developer is an idiot. It usually boils down to too quick to estimate and no super detailed scope of work. So that's where contracts come into play. Contracts also can tell you what will happen if, the client doesn't pay, or maybe if you're providing hosting, what will happen if that hosting doesn't get renewed. So make sure that you spend the time and you have good contracts, and you can be as detailed as you want in here. I know multiple web agencies that charge for every email that they get sent. They charge $5 for every email a client sends them. I am not even joking. And these are large agencies that have lots of clients, really big clients. And why do they do that? Because they want their clients to have consolidated communication. They don't want to get 50 emails saying, oh, I forgot about this. Oh, I forgot about this. Oh, I forgot about this. If they're paying $5 per email, then they're going to consolidate that communication. We all have the joke about attorneys, that attorneys charge for paper clips and printing and everything. But attorneys know what their time is worth, and they don't give it away. And we can make sure that we do the same because we're also offering professional services. What's nice about contracts is you can set the terms you want. You can set, only, I'm only going to work if the deposits get paid. I own everything until final payment, and I give you assets over the site. It's going to make life a lot easier when the time comes. Nathan Ingram has a good book called "Dealing with Problem Clients: Building Fences Around Friendly Monsters." He's a great WordPress agency owner. He's written some great books, so check out this book. It is on Amazon, and it talks about how clients are just friendly monsters, and we need to set our terms. Like, if you need to contact me on a weekend or evening, it's going to have an extra fee. It's going to have a rush fee, or it's going to have an emergency fee. And these are the things that a contract will help protect you with. Where to get contracts? You can use attorney services like your own attorney, or paid services like Legal Shield that will draft them for you. There are some good templates like Monster Contracts, which is also owned by Nathan Ingram, or Ryan Kinney, who's another person in the WordPress space, has her own site called Ecom Legal. And then there's some paid ones like Rocket Lawyer, LegalZoom, and WP Elevation. All have some contract templates. Again, I am not an attorney, but these are some templates that from people I do know and trust, and at least Monster Contracts and Ecom Legal, I should say. And then Microsoft Office has some templates, but at the end of the day, make sure you're protected because something is better than nothing. Now that we talked about all of that stuff, what happens when it's actually time to get paid? How do you do the actual invoicing? There's some SaaS models, WordPress models, and some manual options as well. So let's talk about the SaaS solutions real quick. Let's see, did I talk about that? No. Okay. I'll do it before I get to the WordPress stuff. So the SaaS models, you have things like QuickBooks, QuickBooks Online and FreshBooks and things like that. Or even Wingspan, like I mentioned earlier, has online invoicing. These are great options. They're easy. They might have fees with them, but it's how a lot of people get paid. PayPal's also a SaaS option, has SaaS invoicing and things like that. You have to decide if you want to do your own invoicing and own it yourself, or if you want to use software as a service solution like FreshBooks, QuickBooks Online, PayPal, Wingspan, or something like that. If you are looking for WordPress specific invoicing solutions, there are some good ones out there. So there's three main WordPress invoicing plugins that do exist. The three ones are basically Sprout Invoices, WP Invoice, and Sliced Invoices. There's some other ones out there, but these are the big ones. These numbers are a little out of date, but Sprout Invoices is made by Dan Cameron, who you may know, but he's a great developer in the US. Good friend of mine. Full disclosure, Sprout Invoices is one of the plugins I did help acquire when I was at InMotion Hosting, and it is now owned by InMotion Hosting. I no longer work there, but disclosure there. There's a free and paid version. The paid starts at $59.25 annually. It's rated 4.7 out of 5 stars in the WordPress repo and has 2,000 active installs. WP Invoice is a free version with paid add-ons. It's been rated 3.3 out of 5 stars with 3,000 active installs. And then Sliced Invoices is a free version. Paid starts at $79, rated 4.7 out of 5 stars with 6,000 active installs. These links you see here are free demos that you can spin up without any credit card, without an email address if you don't want to. They just spin up on BoldGrid servers. Again, BoldGrid was an InMotion Hosting product. I don't work there anymore. And you can play around with them without even having to download them and install them on your own staging environment if you're so inclined. These are some of the feature comparisons when I pulled this about a year ago. This might have changed. Now, the one thing about WP Invoice is it says free with paid add-ons. The paid add-ons are very, very light. 99.9% of the functionality in WP Invoice is free. So you really got to consider WP Invoice as almost a completely free plugin. So they might not have as many checkboxes, but where Sprout and Sliced have a lot of these features locked behind pay upgrades, WP Invoice is mostly just a free plugin. It's almost every feature you could ever want. Is in the free version. So again, you got to compare apples to apples. WP Invoice does a good job for the cost, which is basically free. Now, I'm not saying I agree paying for plugins is good. You should pay for plugins. I personally prefer to pay for all my plugins and use premium plugins, because then I feel like I am justified when I need support. But I understand that's not an opportunity for everyone. In my opinion, Sprout Invoices and Sliced Invoices are both easy to use. Sliced Invoices, quite frankly, the templates are a little prettier, quite, in my opinion. And Sprout Invoices has a little bit easier of an onboarding experience, but they're both pretty comparable for features and things there. You want to talk about recurring revenue? Recurring revenue is where you're really going to make your business go from just making good money to really making a lot of money. So maintenance plans are something we all talk about, hosting, things like that. There's a good philosophy called growth-driven design. It's about how to build websites that you charge monthly fees for, kind of like a Wix and Squarespace and Shopify. Doesn't mean you're charging $24 a month, but it's the model of starting with a basic site and then using those goals we talked about earlier to iterate and do experiments to move the needle in the direction the client wants. And then the client is more than happy to pay you $1,000, $1,500, $2,500 a month. Growth-Driven Design's 100% free course. It's written by my buddy, Luke Summerfield. I highly recommend anyone take it. It is owned by HubSpot, so it will suggest the HubSpot content management system, website building software. Just replace HubSpot with WordPress when you're reading it, and it works fine. It has wonderful Excel documents, templates, pricing, email templates. It's an amazing course, and it's 100% free. I can't recommend it enough. There's a really good book done by my buddy Dana Derricks called Dream 100 book, which talks about how to figure out how to network and leverage your audience. I highly recommend this book. Fair word of warning on his products. He is an online info marketer. So you'll go to dream100book.com. The book is free, but then you'll get a bunch of upsells for his audiobook and his training and his courses. You can say no, but oh, no thanks, no thanks, no thanks. But there's going to be like multiple pages of upsells. Again, that's just how he markets. I want people to be aware of that so that you can make an informed decision if you want to get it. You can also just buy his book on Amazon and not deal with the free version on his website if you're so inclined. But his philosophies at Dream 100 book is how I helped InMotion grow their plugins and web venture business and mergers and acquisitions business. I was in his coaching program. I'm a big fan of his stuff, but growth-driven design is also amazing as well. So let's talk about hosting affiliates. Hosting affiliates is an easy way you can to make some recurring revenue. So let's say you're putting your clients on a basic $75 annual hosting plan, and you sell 200 sites a year. Now, I know 200 sites a year seems like a lot, but it all depends on who you're marketing towards. I talk to a lot of agencies that say, oh, my sites are $5,000, but they take 5 weeks. Well, I know people in New York City even that they sell 5 basic site. They sell one $500 site a day. One $500 site a day. It's no more than 3 pages, and they use page builders. It's super templated, but they go after the dry cleaners, the bakeries, the mom and pops. And New York City is full of those bodegas and things that just need simple things beyond just Facebook pages, and they'll be more than happy to cut you a single $500 check. If you can do one $500 site a day, that's $125,000 your first year. If you get all of those people on a standard shared hosting plan of $75, and you're going to earn a 20% commission, you'll earn $3,000 your first year. As long as, assuming these numbers, and you keep selling at 200 sites a day, 200 sites a year, after 2 years, you'll get 6,000. After 8 years, that's an additional $24,000 of side revenue that you didn't have to work for. So again, the you know you might not be selling 200 sites a year. You might be selling 10 sites a year, but then they might need a better hosting plan. Maybe they need a $500 a year hosting plan. These numbers still make sense. So make sure that you become an affiliate of all the products that you use, and don't hesitate to share it. Now, according to make sure you let the clients know that, hey, this is my affiliate link. It doesn't change your pricing, but I do get a kickback. I've never once had a client care, but it is something to think about. I used to do, when I was doing freelancing full time, I still have hundreds of clients that renew their hosting to this day. There have been times that I made more money in a month on my hosting affiliate renewals than I did on my day job. And I haven't talked to a lot of those clients in years. Now, of course, they die off over time, but it's something to think about. When you think about what it takes to, get a new client, don't think about the acquisition cost to get that site. I like to think about the referral acquisition cost. I spoil my clients rotten, and that's why I get referrals. I try to make sure that they understand how special they are to me, and I do this also in my day job at Codable. It also makes sense. Marketing Matrix says you are 5 times more likely to close a deal through an existing relationship. Bain & Company says it costs 7 times more to land a new client than to sell an existing one, than to sell through an existing one. And Nielsen says clients who are referred by you are 4 times more likely to buy from you. So how do I do this? Well, I do lots of crazy stuff because people remember experiences and talk about them. An easy thing to do is figure out their favorite restaurant that's local to the client. Buy the gift card for that local restaurant and put a handwritten note and mail it to them, because then and do it after the project's launched, like, I don't know, 2 months, saying, oh, hey, thanks for the business. I know you like this restaurant. Here's a gift card for Bill's Steakhouse. And because it's a local restaurant, they'll appreciate that you took the time, because it's handwritten. They'll appreciate you took the time. And here's the thing. When that gift card sits in their wallet, every time they look at it, they'll think about you. When they're at the restaurant getting seated, they'll think about you. When they're ordering, they'll think about you. And what experiences have I done? I do lots of crazy junk. I've sent clients 80 pounds of pasta. Yeah, on the lower left corner. And no, that's not a joke. I've sent custom stuffed animals of their logos. I've sent custom coffee mugs, cookies, and even pitch decks of proposals when I was doing web ventures in Real Masters. Yep, on the upper right, that is how I sent proposals to our prospects for our mergers and acquisitions at InMotion Hosting. Initial proposals, not like detailed fiscals and stuff, but just enough to get them interested in talking to us. And because people remember experiences and talk about them. And that's why I love community, because it's all about people. And it's all about being genuine. I'm part of the LGBT community. I came out professionally last year. That was it was a little scary, but I've had more authentic conversations and leads and even business come out of that than I would have ever imagined. And so don't be fake. People know when you're being fake. You want to be genuine. There's a blog that talks about, do we make an impact in the community, on my website, MikeDemo.com, like we talked about. Some quick cautions before we go to questions. Don't use a kill switch. Do not use a kill switch. Do not shut down clients' websites that do not pay you unless your contract is very, very clearly written. There have been multiple lawsuits where web developers have shut down client websites for non-payment, and they were held liable for the client's loss of business. Now, this is different than if you are offering hosting and the client doesn't pay the hosting bill. But not paying the hosting bill is very different than not paying your web design bill, which is why you shouldn't deliver anything until final payment's made and you officially hand over the work. Once it's on their server, it's on their server. Do not use a CSS kill switch. Do not go into the FTP and shut down the site. You can be held fiscally liable. Again, I'm not an attorney, but that's why it's very important to have a contract. But I can point to many examples where people have been burned. Developers have been burned by shutting down websites because their client hasn't paid them, and then they're the ones that are on the hook. If you need collections, hopefully you won't because you have a good scope of work. But if you're not delivering anything until you get paid. But if you do need collections, there's a cool automated app called Debtor Daddy, which is a SaaS and it's AI based debt collections. They do a pretty good job. You can also just send a letter. Sometimes a letter works, or just a phone call. And there's services out. There's companies like Legal Shield, which will send a letter from an attorney if you want it to look scary. But if you want it to be automated, Debtor Daddy connects to QuickBooks, and once it goes past net 30 or whatever you set, it'll just do some AI stuff to collect that debt automatically. And it does a pretty good job. I've used it before. Linus, the father of Linux, said, in real open source, you have the right to control your own destiny. And I strongly believe that with freelancers, you have the right to do what you want, work how you want, work where you want, to earn a real living. Something that I am very proud of at Codable is that our average developer makes $100 an hour. And that doesn't matter where they live, because we have a very rigorous vetting process at Codable. But if they could be in Southeast Asia, Africa, South America, the US, Canada, Western Europe, it doesn't matter, because I believe quality code should be paid fairly. And there's a lot of clients out there more than willing to pay what you're worth, and don't settle. Just because somebody won't go to Squarespace or Wix or Weebly doesn't mean they're the client for you. And I know it's easy to say that, but you don't settle. And if you are interested, you can go to codable.io/apply. I'd love to talk to you. We are hiring more developers, and you can work part-time, full-time, however you'd like, in addition to your own business. But yeah, with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Great. Mike, great job. Thank you so much, man. It's funny you mentioned this thing with the, with the average $100 an hour and stuff. I've had plenty of clients who have turned me down initially because they thought I was too expensive, only to hear from them 6 months or even up to 2 years later with, bad experiences with less experienced, cheaper alternatives. So I agree with you 100% on that. Let's go to some questions here. So we have Sam Carlton he just loves what you said. He wants to know if you have any more books, podcasts, or resources you recommend about learning about pricing.
So about pricing specifically, I would have to look for business in general. The Gino Wickman has a great book called Traction. It's a whole Traction series. I strongly believe in the Traction system. If you haven't read Traction before, start with Get a Grip, an entrepreneurial fable. That is something that is super interesting that will make you want to deploy Traction for the rest of your business. But no, if you want to send me a DM on Twitter, ask me at MP Mike. I can look around. I have about 1,000 books in my Audible library. I can dig around in there, but at the top of my head, besides what I mentioned, I can't think of any. But yeah, definitely hit me up on Twitter, and I can dig around my Audible library. For customer service Magic by Lee Cockrell, who's the former executive vice president of Walt Disney World, is an amazing book. And he has a whole series of books like Time Management Magic and Customer Service Magic, and and so those are great books that you can apply to your businesses as well. And Dana Derricks has another book called The Truth About Business or something like that. He's the guy who did the Dream 100 book. I really like his books as well. But keep in mind, when you buy stuff off his site, again, you'll get the upsells. So just be aware of that. So buy it on Amazon if you don't want to deal with that. So
great. Thank you. Jean has a comment and a question. Her comment is, you are old school about relating to your clients and what so many of us have forgotten. She loves it. Her question is, what is a realistic price for a basic intro website build?
I would say 500. Again, it kind of depends on how you define basic intro website, but I think especially if you don't have enough work to keep busy, I'm a big fan of the $500 website. I'm a big fan of the $500 website. Now, a lot of caveats on the $500 website. No more than 3 pages. pick some niches you want to focus on, like photography or real estate. And real estate's not a good one, like photography, or dry cleaning or bakeries, and build out some templates or use a page builder and have like, give the client like a menu of like 15 options. Okay, you got these 5 themes, and each theme has 5 colors. And focus on that, and you can probably knock it out. If you're doing a $500 website, you want the build of the website to be under 3 hours in time. So maybe use templates or blueprints, or you can even build something called a WAS, which allows you to duplicate the sites on our WP multi-site network, and then the other 2 hours will be like client communication and launching it for them. InMotion Hosting has a product called Website Quick Starter. It's one of their most popular products. They charge a 3-page website using BoldGrid, which is their page builder product, for $99. And they sell that all day long. And they use that as a way to get people into their hosting. And then if the client wants something more, then they transfer it to white glove support, where then they get an estimate and then they pay on top of that. But I'm a big fan of the $500 website. Join your local chamber of commerce, join your business groups, join any affinity groups that make sense for you. Like if you happen to be if you happen to be a LGBT owned business, join the local LGBT chamber of commerce, and you'll whatever affinity groups you have, and you'll find lots of small businesses that just want something basic that were probably looking at Wix, Weebly, or Squarespace, but they found you, so at least then they can own their content. And of course, you can, if you're getting so busy that you can't keep up, then you can always scale the price up so that you can find that nice balance.
Nice. All right. Sam Carlton is asking the question that I think is on all our minds. Can you do a magic trick for us?
Oh.
You're gonna have to get rid of the screen share though, because we need to see you better.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me turn off my camera in 30 seconds, and yes, I'll be able to give you a magic trick. Hold on a second. I just need to grab something, and I can't have you see me grab it.
Yeah. Well, you disappeared. I mean, that's a trick, right?
Yes, I did. It's amazing. I'm really good at the disappearing, clicking a button thing. So this isn't the best trick, but it's one I literally have sitting on my desk. So, okay. Okay, come on. Okay, let me turn my camera back on. Hey, I'm back. And look, I'm wearing a watch now. I wasn't wearing a watch. I was wearing this watch the entire time. So let's take off that watch and let's look at it. So time is very interesting. So you got these watches, you got this little, you got the dial and and you can turn it. So, this can be like 12:20, and then you can turn it again. And then, this is 6:40. So if I'm gonna turn it, and I'm not gonna look at it. So turn it, and somebody tell me, it's hard to see, but I am gonna be turning that, and then I'm gonna stop it. And then what's interesting about time, and if you don't bill for time, you'll find you're losing time. And if you lose too much time, you're gonna be working for yourself, and then the time is gone.
Very nice.
So I don't know how easy that is to see on camera, but so.
Nice job, Mike. We've been doing this for almost 15 years, and that is the first magic trick at the Meetup. So good job.
Wow. Well, I appreciate it. Anna, you live in and it's New York City. That's surprising. There's a lot of great magicians and magic shops in New York City.
Apparently not allowed them to do WordPress development. All righty. Any other questions for Mike? Anyone else? I'm really happy we recorded this presentation. I'm going to review it when we post it on YouTube. I'll announce it on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. So please follow our Twitter channel, our Facebook channel, and our YouTube channel. I'm going to post them all again in the links so you have them and you know when this video will be available. All right. Any other questions? Going once? Going twice? Awesome. Awesome, man. Thank you, Mike. Good seeing you again. And all right, everyone, remember, so Meetup is the third Tuesday of the month.